It's time to reconcile our expenses and revenues this term to determine the overall profit of your little company that you created. To do this, we're going to be using Microsoft Excel to create 3 sheets. One that's an overview that will tabulate your total profit by subtracting your expenses from your revenues. To do that, we're going to be creating 2 additional sheets, one that tracks your revenues. These are monies that you made through your sales. Could have been on the open house, or might be on our December 20th market day, or a market day early in the new year. We're going to have an expenses sheet, and the totals of which each will tabulate on the final overview to give us our final number. In order to create this Excel spreadsheet for your financial tracking, you're going to have to create 3 different sheets. So if you see across the bottom, I have the overview, I have our expenses table, and I have our revenues table. These are tables that you are going to have to create yourself. Here's how. You just create this additional new sheet button, you right click on it, and you can say rename it, and I'll just call this one the example. When you start with an example table, it's just a blank like this. The columns are movable, so if you have your company name here, you can put it at the top. I'll call this Stemia Widgets Revenue. For this table, if we look back at the revenue table, what we want to collect under revenues is when was the purchase made, what is the order number, this could also be the invoice number, the customer name and homeroom, that way we can track who's purchased and how often. This is a good way to get sales analytics on our market. If we choose to open the shop again, it's wise to know who has purchased in the past so we can cater our marketing and our projects or products to that customer group. The quantity that they purchased, and finally the revenue, which would be a multiple of the quantity. So for example, on November 30th during the open house, order number 0, we sold 5 widgets at the open house, quantity 5, revenue 10, therefore they were $2 each. Down here though, what we'd like to do is tabulate the total so that with each of these rows, if I was selling 4 this day, 1 this day, 3 this day, they would all tabulate for a total here of the quantity sold, but also a total here of the revenue, the overall revenue. How we do that is we choose the box that we want to do the calculation. We can choose the function button here, FX. I want to do the sum. So if I want the sum of all of these, this is adding all of the numbers in a range of cells. I'm going to insert this function. Currently, it already assumes that I'm going to want the sum of D4, sort of like Battleship, where you cross from the 4th row in the column D, from D4 all the way to D19. That is correct. I come up to my function window and I push enter, and lo and behold, 5 plus 4 plus 1 plus 3 does equal 13. If I have additional sales, it will auto-tabulate at the bottom anything within that cell range. I want to do the same for my revenue, so currently I have $10 in my example, but I actually don't want to tabulate the example amount because that's a fictional amount. I want to come down here, I will erase the function that I already had. I'm going to say function sum, insert. This time I'd like my range, instead of it starting on D4, I want it to start on D5. So I'm going to click and drag all the cells in my range, come back to my function, hit enter, and I've made no money. It doesn't include this example amount, but let's say I made $8 with this sale, $2 with that sale, $2 with that sale. You see your revenues, your total revenue amount growing. Similar with our costs and expenses sheet, we created a new sheet, we named it expenses. The rows are going to be the vendor, which is who we purchased our product from. For the most part, it will be Amazon, potentially Dollarama. It could be a vendor online, depending on where you got it. So for the example, it was Dollarama. What did I need in order to make my product? Was hot glue sticks for assembly, the cost of which was $3.50. If I had another purchase through, let's say, Amazon.ca, that was for beads and magnets to see my product through to assembly. The cost there being $15. These tabulate automatically as numbers. If you choose all of your cells, here you can format what would you like those cells to include. They might be dates. In our case, we want money, so I'm going to say English, Canada, cash. That will give us the 2 decimal points to the hundredths decimal position with a $sign. If I had another purchase, let's say this was from the, I don't know, vending machine, and let's say for some reason I needed a pop can, that was $1. Each of these are going to tabulate, but there again, I would like to have a total for the total amount. So I'm going to click on that box. I'm going to choose my function button up here by the address bar, function button. This formula builder should come up. Sum, insert the function of sum. That will add all of the costs in this cell range. Once again, I have an example cell in C4, which I don't want to tabulate because that's a fictional cost. That's just for the example. So I'm going to come up here and change C4 to C5 so that it's only tabulating the rows from my actual sales. I'm going to come to the end of the bracket, hit my enter key, and 15 plus 1 is $16. The last step is to put these numbers together in an overview. So you can again create another sheet. These sheets are easy to maneuver and manipulate. So if you're doing this out of order, if you started with your expenses, or if you started with your revenues and then we did expenses and the overview could be your third sheet, at the end you can always just click and drag the overview to the beginning. The example one, I'm just going to delete for now. Yes, delete, and I'm back to my 3 sheets. For the overview page, what we want to do is have the total number of expenses, the total number of revenues, and how much do you owe STEM. The resulting calculation here will be the profit that you walk away with, having paid off or paid for your products or overhead. Overhead in a business might include the facility, could include salaries, benefits, even things like insurance and electricity. Luckily for us, our expenses are really just the projects or the products we needed in order to create our widgets. The overview, I have my total expenses. This number, I could simply go over to my expenses window and see the number 34, come back here and type it in. But if I have a last minute sale, I would always have to be flipping between these 2 sheets. So what we're going to do is set this sheet to automatically update whenever we have a new expense. So I'm going to click my box here. I want this to become a function. So I'm going to, in my address bar here, I'm actually just going to say equals. So the equals of this cell is going to be, if I flip to my expenses page, cell C20. You can see up here it says equals expenses sheet C20. If I push the enter key, now that 34 is on my overview page. If I come back to my expenses, this 34 is the same as my overview 34. But let's say I have a return. Somebody had a product that they didn't want anymore, or it was broken and they had to return it. So I'm going to take off this sale. Our total amount in our expenses sheet is now 28. Our overview will automatically adjust. Same thing with our revenues. We click in the revenues box, we come to our little address bar thing here, equals sign, we go to our revenues page, we pull E20 in this case, click. It says revenues page E20, we say enter, and the number on our revenues will be 12. This number, the amount that you owe STEMIA, might be the same number as your total expenses. If the school purchased all of your products, then this amount owing STEMIA might be the exact same. You may have purchased all of the things on your own, or you may not owe anyone anything, in which case that could just be 0. For the sake of this example, we're just going to have the amount owing STEMIA also be this same box, in which case we could just go equals and either choose this box now or back to the expenses box. I'll choose the expenses box just to repeat the process. I'll say enter. So now we have 2 boxes that are both pulling from the total on the expenses page. In order to calculate our profit, we have one more formula. It equals. So what we want to do is take our total revenues, which is this. That's the total amount we made entirely, which was B5. And we want to subtract from that the amount that it cost us to open our business, which is the expenses. And if we hit the equal sign, we will see that my company in this example was not very successful. It actually made negative $16. When this is in the negative, you'll see it in brackets. Let's say I flip these and my expenses were lessened. I didn't spend 28, I spent 16, and let's say my revenues, I made one more sale that was $8, brought me to an even $20 on my total revenues. I come to my overview, my expenses were only 16, my revenues were 20, for a total net profit of my company of $4.